My name's Kevin Marriott. I'm the tech lead of XPRIZE Rainforest, and presenting with me is John Greisberger. He's our prize director for XPRIZE Rainforest. A quick overview of the agenda. I'm going to cover an overview, and then we're going to go into what we do in XPRIZE as within the biodiversity and conservation domain. I'll then go into a bit more detail about XPRIZE Rainforest, the team's technologies, what we should expect to see coming out of the prize, and then we'll go on to some of the other prizes that we're running within the conservation domain, XPRIZE Wildfire, and then some future prizes that we're looking to release pretty soon, and then we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So I'll just hand over to John quickly.
Hello, everyone. So XPRIZE is a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles, and our mission is to inspire and empower a global community of problem solvers to positively impact this world. And we do that by designing and managing global incentivized prize competitions to crowdsource solutions to solve some of the world's biggest problems. And to give you a better sense of who we are and what we do, I'll share a quick video.
The XPRIZE Foundation runs incredible large-scale competitions around the world that set very clear, measurable, objective goals. The first person to build, demonstrate this capability wins the prize money, and the world gets the benefits.
Anusha Ansari is the CEO of XPRIZE, which sponsors competitions to solve the world's challenges.
Competitions and prizes can actually bring innovation to solve not just any problem, but really big, challenging problems.
I think we're about setting a high bar. You want to set a goal for people that's inspiring, but it's also hard.
When we're designing an XPRIZE, we're looking for something that is audacious and achievable.
Goals that are far beyond where the industry is.
Problems that the markets have failed to solve.
To help people really dig into their imaginations. Creativity is everywhere.
We don't care who you are or where you come from. If you're able to accomplish this task, you win, and that's it.
1,000 years ago, it was only the kings and queens who could do anything on a national or regional level. Today, it's all of us. Anyone who's truly passionate, driven by a massively transformative purpose, can go and make a change in the world.
We are leveraging the genius of people from all over the world.
The tinkers, the entrepreneurs, the engineers.
People who are not satisfied with the way things are and know that it can be better.
It's all around hopefulness. It's all about collaboration.
Prizes are not about competition, they're about impact. And there is no better and more powerful tool to do it, in our opinion, than a prize itself.
I've seen things go from a paper plane to an actual spaceship.
We've seen private spaceflight revolution.
$300 million invested in the lunar economy. Over 10 million kids integrated into STEM education.
Technology that increased the rate of cleaning up oil spills.
Technology to help keep people safe.
To make sure everyone is healthy.
Feeding people, educating people, cleaning the air, exploring the oceans or space. We're changing what people believe is possible.
We want to have an ideal future, and it's up to us to build it.
So no matter what challenge you want to solve, join us on this journey. Just don't be satisfied doing nothing.
And so our prize competitions, they reward performance and not potential. We feel that the best ideas can come from anyone, anywhere. A unique aspect about our competitions is that to develop innovative technological solutions, they really challenge people to get out of their silos and to collaborate across disciplines. Our prize competitions attract engineers, scientists, roboticists, biologists, ecologists, anthropologists, and also experts in big data and artificial intelligence and machine learning, among many other disciplines. We've even had high school teams register and compete in our competitions. This is a photo of Ocean Quest, a high school team from Northern California that competed in our Ocean Discovery XPRIZE. They didn't win the competition, however, they got to the final round and also won a $1 million NOAA bonus prize. So our competitions in general set out to achieve the following. They set an audacious but achievable goal that people once deemed impossible. They define and address a clear problem through extensive research, collaboration with a diverse community of experts, and also a prize design sprint, which we carry out in-house and lays out the parameters for our competitions. They also enhance and democratize innovation by encouraging expert and non-expert participation and interdisciplinary collaboration. They also catalyze markets by raising awareness of both systemic and market failures and accelerating innovation to address them. And they are highly leveraged, which means in most cases that teams that compete and advance to the later rounds have to mobilize capital and partner support in order to be successful. And some of the benefits of incentivized prize competitions is that they foster innovation and collaboration, and what makes our competitions successful is that they attract a diverse group of problem solvers and challenge them to look at the problems differently to develop novel and innovative solutions. They also validate technologies, and so for the nascent industries and early stage startups that XPRIZE competitions seek to catalyze, the rigorous testing and technical analysis that they have to go through as part of the judging process really validates teams' innovative technological solutions, which also paves the way for acceptance, investment, and broader adoption post-competition. As much as possible, we also try to spread hope and positivity and convey the message globally that it's not all doom and gloom and that there are people out there that are addressing the world's biggest challenges. And in terms of scaling as much as possible, we try to, in terms of the innovations that are catalyzed throughout the competition, we don't want to see that stop just because the competition is over. We want to scale those innovations as much as possible post-prize. And I just want to highlight the first XPRIZE competition, the Ansari XPRIZE, because it's also a proof of concept for our organization. Our founder, Peter Diamandis, had always wanted to get to outer space. However, for many decades, this space was only, I guess, populated by national governments who had the resources and the ability to operate in this sector. But he wanted to make space travel more accessible and affordable. And so he launched this competition and offered any team $10 million that could build a spaceship, fly to suborbital outer space twice in 2 weeks, carrying 3 passengers, and to do it all with private financing. And so this photo here is Spaceship One, which was funded by Paul Allen, and they won the competition in 2004. Richard Branson then licensed the winning team's technology and started Virgin Galactic, and this is a prime example of how an incentive prize competition can catalyze a whole new industry. So XPRIZE has been around for 29 years. In that time, we've launched 27 prizes. We've awarded 20 of them, and we've given out over $150 million in prize money. Just need to update that number there. We currently operate out of 7 domains, and we have active competitions in biodiversity and conservation, climate and energy, and food, water, and waste. We're also launching a $100 million prize in the health domain later this month. Now we'll get into the biodiversity and conservation domain. As Kev mentioned, we both lead the XPRIZE Rainforest competition, but we also have a Wildfires prize, which launched earlier this year, and we're currently fundraising for a coral restoration prize. And now, Kev, we'll get into the XPRIZE Rainforest competition.
Thanks. So, XPRIZE Rainforest. So what is XPRIZE Rainforest? A $10 million prize over 5 years to enhance our understanding of tropical rainforests around the world. So the prize is sponsored by the Alana Foundation. It's a foundation out of Brazil. It also supports initiatives in the areas of environment, inclusive education, health research through grants and co-funding partnerships. I'll just show you a quick video.
The rainforest, an area home to more species than anywhere else on Earth.
I feel like I'm in the heart of everything. There's a thriving that is really powerful.
An area that cleans our air, purifies our water, holds many of the important solutions to tomorrow's problems.
This rainforest is instrumental to the survival of the entire human race.
We need to protect what we have. The future of humanity is at stake.
How can we monitor a large area of forests that would provide us with a view of the tropical forest functioning?
We need nature.
So unfortunately, you can't set up a team within XPRIZE Rainforest because we're already halfway through the prize. But you can actually approach a team and still join as a member. So this is where we are. We had the semi-finals in Singapore in the summer of this year, and we down-selected, and we've now got 6 teams that are going on to compete in the finals, which will be in Brazil next year. We expect to announce winners around this time in 2024, and from that we'll be launching 12 months of impact, where we expect this technology to get out to protected areas in rainforests, to rapidly survey biodiversity. So to win, the winning team will develop novel technologies that rapidly and comprehensively survey rainforest biodiversity and use these data to deliver new insights that promote the health and conservation of rainforests globally. So what the teams have to do to win, so teams have a limited period of time to explore an area of rainforest and produce a biodiversity assessment of the rainforest, as well as insights from integrating multiple sources of data to document the value of the standing forest. So the testing criteria then, so this isn't by any means the capabilities in full of the technology. This is the testing criteria. So the survey plot size for the tests and the finals, the 100 hectares. The teams have 24 hours to survey that 100 hectares. And then one of the most difficult challenges isn't necessarily the testing and the data capture, it's actually the data processing. So they have 48 hours to process all of that data that they pull out of the forest within that 24 hours and then produce insights. So the prize purse for the competition, winning team is going to get $5 million, second team's $2 million, and the third prize is $500K. We've already given out $2 million to the 6 teams that are now in the finals, and there's also a $250K bonus prize. So it's a complete prize purse of $10 million. So just to recap, it's a 24-hour test window followed by 48 hours of data analysis. So the team that actually decides who wins this competition is an independent panel of judges made up of biodiversity and technology experts. And the types of technology platforms that we're seeing in the prize is UAVs, unmanned ground vehicles, uncrewed surface vehicles, deployed sensors, and remote sensors as well. So I just flipped through some photos of what we saw in the semi-finals. So the teams are still developing their technologies, but some of the most kind of exciting in my mind is these deployable sensor packages that the teams deploy on top of the forest canopies. The forest canopy being the most under-researched area of the forest because it's most difficult to get to. We saw a host of ground vehicles as well, from expensive like Boston Dynamics Spot Dog to independently and made tracked vehicles, other vehicles with wheeled vehicles. If you're wondering how well these vehicles did in a rainforest, I'll tell you, not very well. But there was actually no data on how well the Spot Dog actually performed outside of an urban environment. There's pretty much nothing out there. So we were excited to see how badly it performed in the rainforest, and it didn't disappoint. It completely got wrapped up and fell over, and it's in vines and everything else. So these guys that were using ground robotics were pretty much restricted to trails and paths. Like I said, the most exciting and innovative part of the team's technologies, I believe, is these sensor arrays that are delivered by drone into the top of the forest canopy. Now, I know the emphasis with EarthRanger is mainly protected area management and protecting that area, and this is mainly geared towards research and understanding the forest. But these deployment mechanisms can easily be tweaked at a later date to incorporate security-based sensors as well. So this is just one example of some of the team's tech. So they're deploying one of those sensor packages. So on here, there's all kinds of different systems. There's bioacoustics, so just listening to what's happening in the forest. Like I said, easily adaptable for security means as well. And they actually have onboard traps as well. So light traps is the main trap these guys were using to survey insects on top of the forest canopy. So you can see at night the traps light up, attract all the bugs, and then they capture the bugs. And what this team's actually going to be doing is analyzing gut contents to come up with vertebrate identifications. So the bugs that the animals that these bugs have been feeding on they're going to actually analyze what's in the guts of those bugs to identify what these bugs have been feeding on to make presence identifications of whatever animals it might be. And then they go through to doing eDNA analysis and identification using photos as well. So what's on some of these sensor packages then? So, hyperspectral, multispectral imagery, LiDAR imagery, your standard kind of RGB, color cameras, IR and thermal cameras, bioacoustic data, traps, which are still kind of traditional type traps for biodiversity assessments. They're just deployed completely remotely. Environmental sensors, so measuring the temperature, relative humidity, light and gases, and eDNA sampling. So some of the eDNA sampling's really innovative within this competition as well. It's making it so that eDNA is going to be more accessible and usable in the field to what it currently is. So the competition is really driving that. So that's going to make it so that we are able to have huge amounts of understanding of what's going on in the forest that we haven't previously. So just to give you an idea of what we'd expect from some of these sensor technologies. So this is what we get from hyperspectral. So we get an idea of the forest. In this case, we can actually make identifications of certain plants and trees based on the hyperspectral images, and also estimate carbon content as well. So if in terms of looking at what the carbon capacity is of certain protected areas, this is going to be able to help make that a rapid assessment as well. Similar kind of thing with LiDAR, although this is more about forest structure. So how large some of the trees are, and give you an idea of the kind of structure of the forest canopy. And then your normal kind of color camera. It's using a lot of AI systems to make these identifications. Some IR and thermal. Some really interesting. This is actually off of the spot dog when it was walking down the tracks, and it was able to produce a kind of a digital twin of what was around that track. So being able to all using that thermal imaging, and I think these thermal imaging videos are obviously taken at night once the forest has cooled down, and that's clearly a bat. And I think this one was a squirrel, actually. So bioacoustics. So placing bioacoustics on drones, which kind of sounds, like that's almost really difficult to do because you've got drone noise and everything else that's going to drown it out. So the competition is driving innovation in that way to filter out some of that drone noise, and deployment mechanisms that can deploy the microphone further away from the actual drone itself as well, and using highly directional microphones to block out some of that noise. And then what a lot of the teams are doing is making identifications and building libraries on insects, and so being able to identify insects through their acoustics, which is quite new as well. Birds are very well documented, so it's quite easy to use AI to identify birds from their acoustics, but it's a lot more difficult to identify insects. Like I said, certain traps, using traditional trap methodologies, just remotely deploying them. So all kind of normal survey methodologies come into play with these traps as well, so they don't have to redesign. They're not redesigning how you do biodiversity assessments. They're just making it so that the traps and the sensors are rapidly deployable using these UAVs, and can be retrieved later on as well. So that also means that we're not interfering. There's no human disturbance on the areas, which it could also massively come into play when we're looking at putting in security mechanisms and sensors rather than sensors for biodiversity research. And one of the things that the teams did in Singapore was they actually produced 2 first known photographs of insects. These 2 insects here, so an ant and a crane fly. They'd only been scientifically described from dead specimens like over 100 years ago, so there'd never been any photographs of those. And that's in a city like Singapore. If anybody's been, it's very urban, highly researched. So it was a surprise to everybody that they were actually able to capture these 2 species. So the first known photographs of those came out of the competition. So, and that's in Singapore. So we have we've got big expectations to what's going to come out of finals in Brazil, in the Brazilian Amazon and beyond during our 12 months of impact and scaling. So it's another video of another actual drone that's going in and picking up a sensor array down here. So, it's not just deploying it's actually easier. Retrieving it's a little bit more difficult. You can see they've picked it up and then they're bringing it back. And then this sensor package would have all kinds of information on there. If it contains traps, it will have trap specimens within there for later identification. And give you an idea of Singapore if you've not seen it before. It's like a fragment rainforest right in the center of the city. And flying these drones as well was all done completely beyond line of sight. So the teams were actually in the forest. They weren't in the urban area putting these things in. They were completely flying either autonomously or using just their cameras. So completely beyond line of sight. So some of the other sensors then. So some of these environmental sensors, temperature, humidity, light and gas, just give you an idea of the what sort of data can be captured within using those sensors, and how some of the teams are packaging them. So this is one of the ground robots. It was just the teams are basically packing in as much sensors as they can, to capture as much data as they can within that 24 hours. And then, like I said, the eDNA side is one of the other really innovative component parts of the prize, and like I said, this is going to be a really evolving technique that we are pretty confident is going to make it a lot more accessible to everybody in the field to be able to conduct these types of eDNA assessments for species identification. And actual physical samples as well. So this is a mechanical pruner that's attached to a drone, so they can go up and take actual physical samples of trees. Also works really well on like cliff faces and things like that, difficult areas to get to. And some of the challenges then for working in the rainforest, so using UAVs in the rainforest, if anyone's tried to use radios or anything like that in that type of environment, it's one of the most difficult, harshest environments to work in. And one of those reasons is just massive signal attenuation. So this is something the teams have had to overcome using enhanced antenna techniques and remotely repeating signals and things like that. And obviously it's hot and humid, and those things all rub against technology. The cameras and just about anything that would overheat was overheating, so teams had to overcome that. Some teams had the foresight to really look into that and try and mitigate those risks before attending. Those that didn't had a lot of failures. And this is one of the things that we do within XPRIZE as part of that technology validation. During our competitions, we're basically like acting as the gatekeepers. So before this technology goes out and is trying to be used within protected areas or by staff on the ground, it's already gone through a full kind of validation. Canopy egress as well, so we don't want to chop trees down to make a clearing. So teams are also challenged to actually fly their drones through very small openings in the forest canopy and land as well, and then operating beyond line of sight. And then one of the things we had to do as well as XPRIZE was actually come up with new civil aviation clearances and negotiate with the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. And like I say, Singapore, very small city, is a hub in the region, very, very busy air traffic through there. And, just through the strength of the foundation and the organization and the relationships that we had with the government there, we were actually able to get them to completely move the airspace for the test days that we had. So they were redirecting aircraft all around the test site, which was pretty difficult to get, but they agreed to it. And then also signal interferences. So, Singapore, I just said, it's a very urban environment. So it's known as a city in nature. So there was all kinds of noise and things like that out there. So Singapore doesn't sound like it's, the best place to test rainforest technologies. But we knew that we were going to be testing in a much harsher environment in the finals. So as part of a staged approach and gradually get more and more difficult, Singapore was the better option, but it also meant that the teams had to overcome some of those issues that they hadn't thought about, which was overcoming signal interferences from adjacent transmitters as well. The other aspect of the prize that was difficult was the large amounts of data that was potentially coming out of the forests. So, if you've ever had to handle and manage large amounts of data, moving it over the internet is a very slow process, especially when you're somewhere with limited connectivity. It's just not going to happen. So one of the things that we looked at and did some research on was the use of these kinds of data devices by some of the big server cloud type service providers, so Amazon, AWS, their snow devices, which are these big things here. Just give you an idea, this is the smallest one, which is about the size of a shoebox, and this one here is was pretty massive. It was about the size of a kind of standard check-in suitcase, and the storage on there is something like 80 terabytes. So the idea is you put all your data on there, and then you ship it, and then they upload it to the cloud once it gets to the actual server location. So it's a way of quickly moving large amounts of data. Other providers are Amazon, Azure, their data box, and you can actually use your own network attached storage as well. Like I said, the teams had 48 hours to analyze all of that data, as well as provide us with a copy of the data. So it wasn't a lot of time. And the reason why we give them this 48-hour limit is to try and force them to use AI to make those species identifications, rather than relying on crowdsourcing or just going through it and manually making these species identifications. The teams were mainly using a mixture of custom and off-the-shelf AI models to make these identifications. And some of the outcomes of the semi-finals, we had just under 1,500 observations, and out of those observations, there was over 2,000 identifications, identifying 407 different species. And we down selected to 6 teams, so we've now got 3 teams from the US, 1 team from Brazil, 1 team from Switzerland, and a team from Spain. But the composition of those teams is pretty global, so they had representation from all over, but not a lot of representation from Africa, which is something that I'm really hoping that we can change on our upcoming competitions. And I believe it's mainly from just awareness of XPRIZE, who we are, what we do, and the accessibility of being able to join the prize. If people don't know about it, then they're not going to follow it. They're not going to know that this prize is running. So I believe that's the main reason why we didn't get much participation from Africa. And so look forward. The next thing we're doing is we're testing the team's technology in Amazonia in Brazil in July 2024. And this was taken just in August. If you've been following the news, I know like Israel has been dominating the news recently, but the Amazon's like completely dry, so it doesn't look like this. But it was completely flooded when we were there in August, and within 2 months, it is pretty much completely dry. Really bad what's going on there. So we're hoping it doesn't have too much of an effect on the biodiversity there, but we'll find out. And I just hand over back to John to do wildfire.
So in the interest of time, we'll just quickly highlight the wildfire prize so that there's time at the end for questions. And so the wildfire prize is a 4-year, $11 million prize to end destructive wildfires.
More than 8 million acres have gone up in flames in 2020.
It seems like it is the canary in the coal mine of climate change.
There are embers blowing under my car.
Everything's on fire. Our ranch is on fire. My house is on fire.
Don't start.
You can see how intense the flames are right now.
Let's reinvent what has been an old form of fire suppression, of people putting themselves in danger, and let's save those lives.
And so for this prize competition, early detection is key. Currently, the most common way for wildfires to be detected is by people calling in, and over 40% of those detected wildfires are false positives. So this competition is essentially 2 tracks. Track A is space-based, and in this part of the competition, teams are challenged to detect a wildfire or multiple wildfires across an area the size of entire countries, ignoring decoy fires in less than 1 minute. There's also an autonomous wildfire response track. So in this track, teams will be challenged to detect and suppress a high-risk fire over a 1,000 square kilometer area, ignoring the decoy fires in less than 10 minutes. And there's also a $1 million bonus prize associated with this competition. And this is just the prize purse breakdown. So each track has a $3.5 million finals prize purse. And there's also $1.5 million in milestone prizes awarded once teams get past the first milestone of the competition. And currently there's over 200 interested teams from 40 countries. We're still in the team recruitment phase for this competition. For the space-based track, registration ended at the end of last month, but there's still a late discretionary registration period. So if there's still interested people out there, there's an opportunity to join. Track B, the autonomous response track, registration for that track ends at the end of January next year. Now back to Kev to discuss potential upcoming prizes in biodiversity and conservation.
Yeah, so some of the future prizes in XPRIZE, we're always developing on an annual basis our how we can help and where prizes could assist with current challenges. So we're speaking to people like yourselves who are on the ground and trying to capture some of those challenges and coming up with prizes that design concepts that can help. So coral restoration is the one that we're currently fundraising for. So it's the largest coral restoration effort ever. It's going to be a 5-year, $20 million competition, and the winning team will restore the largest area of corals within 2 years, and a minimum of 3 hectares, minimum 3 species of corals. Currently in the fundraising stage, it's about halfway, and it's currently in partnership with the government of Barbados and Tiffany & Co. The next one's XPRIZE Mangroves, 6-year, $10 million competition. Winning team will restore the most amount of hectares of rainforest, mangrove ecosystems in a regenerative manner. Most hectares restored within 2 years, at least 3 species, stable and increasing trajectory of cover, biomass and health. So this is currently at the fundraising stage. And then the other one is species rediscovery. So this is a 5-year, $15 million competition. The winning team will rediscover the most amount of lost species on Earth within 5 years and develop their conservation plans. And must rediscover at least 1 lost species. So this is really relevant to those protected areas that are already out there, already patrolling some of these areas that would benefit from looking and rediscovering species. Rangers might be like walking past species that haven't actually been documented. We don't know that they're there. For instance, there was, I don't know if everybody's aware, but there was a 9th pangolin species identified middle of this year, and it was identified through eDNA, so we haven't actually seen it, but it was identified from eDNA sampling on the scales that were actually found in I think it was Hong Kong, so in an airport. So we don't know, maybe that was the last one of that 9th species, but we don't know what it looks like. We know it's a pangolin, but all we know is it's pangolin with scales, and we don't know the size or anything like that, or whether it's tree or ground. We just know that it's a 9th species of pangolin. So teams for this would be encouraged to rediscover a lost species within their countries and regions. So this isn't going to be people flying in, trekking through forests to try and rediscover species. It's a competition geared towards people that are already there, organisations that are already in these protected areas, to just maybe do a little bit more to identify some of these species that maybe aren't there. And we're hoping some of the technologies from like XPRIZE Rainforest could really assist and get this technology out there to make some of these species rediscoveries, especially with like eDNA and things like that. If you know that you've taken eDNA samples of a certain area and you've come up and there's a new species there, then you can go put a bit more effort in to find it, and then maybe win a couple of $1 million in funding. And we go through a process, and if anybody's seen Alina, she's also on our brain trust, and it's just a process. So it's like a think tank where we go through and work out and thrash out how to come up with these prize designs. And I'll open it up for questions. Any questions? One we normally get is about what teams have to do to enter and how accessible that is. So normally teams have to pay a $200 fee to register as a team, and that's mainly there just as a spam filter, really, to stop random people registering as a team. That's something that we're trying to work on to make it more accessible in lower income countries as well. But there's always negotiations there that we're trying to work out. But
just a quick query. I'm interested in the data analysis and how. So I'm interested in the data analysis and concentration on taking the captured data that is coming from all of these different. How much emphasis do you put on? Okay, now you've got this data. It's great. what are we looking at in terms of data processing, what reports are coming out from that, and how that's driving change or directing change where it's required, and it like waiting within your...
Yeah, so teams have to they have to make the data public, so they're going to be publishing to GBIF, which is the largest registry of online biodiversity data. We're also making it a requirement that they integrate their solutions with Gundy. So that's it within the new rules and regs, and we're still thrashing that out. We're still trying to make sure that we're asking the teams to do something that's achievable and is also relevant. So some of the teams have their own dashboards. So for those teams that are doing that, it just makes sense to have those dashboards and the servers and the data accessible via Gundy to be used and pulled into EarthRanger or Smart. That's just makes perfect sense. So we're making the teams do that. Teams that are just producing a species list with their own insights in a traditional kind of biodiversity report, that probably won't be integrated directly, but it'll probably integrate and can be pulled via Gundy through iNaturalist is another one, or GBIF.
Can you speak a little bit towards the process of generating ideas for competitions and how that works?
Yeah, so we run it every year. So it's actually ongoing at the moment as we speak, where we're selecting the future prizes. So it's what we call a brain trust. It's basically a think tank of all kinds of different people from different backgrounds that are kind of heads of their fields or very, very experienced. And it can be for a biodiversity and conservation domain, because it's domain specific. There's biologists, career conservationists, but there's also within that futurists and scientific writers, for instance, who are just kind of out of the box thinkers. So we capture the what's urgently needed, and not all of it's prizable, So not everything can be fixed with a prize. So if it can't be, then we won't pursue it, and that's part of the brain trust function, is to identify what those prizes that can actually help some of those global or mitigate some of those global problems and fix them. And it goes through a whole process where they take ownership of certain prize concepts, and then it's taken on a vote internally within the domain, and then it goes beyond that, and it's kind of like peer reviewed amongst all the brain trusts, where they then vote on which prizes are most suitable, rip them apart, and build them up again, and just make sure that all the concept is correct. So we've got certain ones at the moment running. I worked on one which is about decoding communications between certain species, mainly endangered species, so whales, dolphins, elephants, and being able to decode their speech to understand more about what's going on. And then the potential uses of that could be huge and really catalyze a whole new area of research. In how we communicate with wildlife. But so some of it's really, really out there, and it's down to the brain trust to work out whether it's actually plausible and whether it's doable.
Do the ideas get submitted from the general public as a first step?
They can do, yeah. So I mean, we're completely open. So if you've got ideas or challenges that you face currently, or ideas, we take them on board, and that's part of what we do at these events as well, is try and capture those types of challenges.
Kev, for the teams that are in the final, so for the Rainforest Trust one, for example, are they generally composite teams that come together specifically for the XPRIZE, or are they are they teams that have been formed before for other purposes?
Yeah, so a lot on Rainforest, a lot of the teams are university teams. But they don't have to be. They can be already existing businesses. They have to register as an actual business. So whether they're, a team of one person or two, they have to register as an actual legal entity. So that's one thing that they have to be, and that's we're sending checks potentially for millions of dollars. So it has to go to an entity. But other than that, it can be anybody. The strongest teams are those that are multidisciplined, that have good representation from all over, especially within the biodiversity and conservation. Most of the things we're trying to solve are like global problems, so they're not specific to certain areas. So it's good to have that representation from everywhere, where everybody can come together and just work out to make sure that the solutions are applicable for a global use case rather than just individual regions. So we say like anyone, anywhere, really.